Sir, just a moment, sir. Anshul is facing some problem. I am rectifying it. In 5 minutes, sir. He'll be in the 5 minutes. Please wait for 5 minutes. The presenter is facing some technical issue. In 5 minutes, he will be coming. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's fine.
Now it's fine. You requested the expert to disallow the participants' annotations?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was done.
Everything is done. Okay.
Yes,
Then it's perfectly all right. So, Anshul Agarwal, sir, welcome to this particular session. This is Dr. Venkat, Dean Training and Placements of Gayatri Vidya Parishad. From Gayatri Vidya Parishad family, we are very happy to invite you to this particular session. Your contribution definitely gives a lot of benefit to the students to develop their knowledge in this area. So students, today with us Mr. Anshul Agarwal. He is a senior manager from JCB India Limited, and he is going to address you all on engine performance and emissions. So he is having a lot of expertise in automobile industry, and he is a very reputed mechanical engineer. I request Ajit to add some introductory words about Anshul Agarwal, sir, to the gathering. And I request all of you, please welcome him for this particular session. And on behalf of GVP, we are very much thankful to you, sir, for sparing your valuable time. Ajit, please give some introductory words about speaker to the audience, please.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Ajit, Training and Placement Officer, and Anshul is a friend of mine. I met him during our MTech. So I remember his first presentation on same engines when he was a student. So I would really eager to see what is going to present now. So let's hand over this session to him. Already it's 10 minutes late, so let's hand over the session to him, and hope everyone will enjoy this session as I enjoyed his first session on engines when we were in MTech.
Thank you, Ajit. And Anshul sir, this is the floor is yours. The online floor is yours. You can go ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Venkat Rao sir and Ajit, for giving me opportunity to interact with students. I hope everyone is safe and doing well. So I'm not going to teach or tell anyone about the theoretical study which we do in college and all this. So just I'm sharing my experience regarding engines, how legislation comes into picture, and how legislation drives the development of the various hardwares and increase the engine life. So overall, I will talk about the how we do the engine performance optimization at one hand by considering the various hardwares and parallelly keeping the legislative emission reduction in mind, because that is our final target. So I hope my voice is clear to all. Sir, you can give me input.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is fine.
Okay, thank you.
You can make your screen full screen and you can start, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So what drives the emission reduction in terms of an automotive emissions? Because every 5 to 10 years we see there is a change in emission legislations which government takes, and what imposes government to take this call. Because if you see the from Indian point of view, there is no scrappage policy. The vehicle which was purchased in 1990, still that we are continuing with the same vehicle that emits 15 to 20 times of the emissions level which we are doing today. So now as we are moving into the BS6 emissions regime, and we have lot of curve from the government bodies and lot of various initiatives which we have adopted from the European Union and European cycle. So that helps us is in improving the air quality index, because every year when the winter comes in the northern part of India, you might be hearing a lot of articles or news of the smoke, and air quality index has gone significantly low, so which is having a health impact, because the 2.5 pm which goes into the blood cells and increase the toxicity level of the blood. So all these parameters pushes Supreme Court and ministry to take a healthy action on the curb of the emissions. So now, as we all know, the emissions is the final and legislative task which every automotive has to take, because if we are not meeting the emission norms, then we are not going to sell our vehicle in market. But this is the, you can say, strict order which comes from a government. But at the other end, as an engineer, we have some leverage by which we have to satisfy our customer, because finally customer is the king. Like various parameters like engine performance which lead to the vehicle performance, fuel economy, that my vehicle should be give the optimum fuel economy as compared to my competitors, as well as cost is a major criteria in India by which each and every engine manufacturer has to go. So now I will tell you how we decide the performance. Like there might be some category of the customers which like a very low end torque, or you can say the peppy drive. As soon as you put some part on your accelerator pedal, your vehicle should fly. Okay, so for those type of people, fuel economy is not a concern. But at the other end, there are some large quantity of customers which are more driven by the fuel economy. On the base of that, they are slightly able to compromise on the performance. That's you can see from a different OEM prospect. I can give you some example. Like if you drive any Maruti vehicle, you will get a fuel economy, but you will not get a punch which we used to get in a drive. But at the same time, if you drive any Mahindra vehicle, it will give you performance with an optimized fuel economy. So these are the parameters which drives the development that I will take care in the subsequent slides. Now, there are various parameters on which we optimize engines. First, I have taken the emission part because that is a more complicated and final limit. So now whatever I have shared in the first picture, it's a ECE cycle, that is European emission cycle, and it is divided into two parts. One is urban driving cycle, which is known as UDC, and it represents the city driving cycle, like in India, and you can take any metro city or somewhere. And other one is the EUDC, which is known as extra urban drive cycle, which refers to a highway cycle, and it is more aggressive and high speed cycle. Now this is the cycle with combination of different gears which we have to follow on a chassis dyno while performing the certification test. Now, if I convert this cycle into my engine load points, that is speed and torque points. So you can see the black dot points are the my engine operating points, which comes under the emission driving cycle. So if I optimize this black dot zones, then I will be legally valid to pass my emission norms. But in actual scenario, things are little bit different, because when we drive our vehicle on road, it operates at a wider range. So that was till date what not covered in till BS4. So you can see I've shown some arrows, and this red dotted curve is the extended zone in which also our vehicle runs. And as a statics, we runs 30 to 40% times more in those zones. So it means we are not complying the same emissions norms which we are getting in the test lab on road. And but till date there was no legislation regarding, so it was okay. Now when the legislative bodies understand this thing and lot of knowledge has taken from Europe, so then it was found that we have to perform some test which signifies the on road cycles. So with regard to that on road cycle, and with the auto fuel policy, Indian automotive industry is working towards that, and we have achieved BS6 emissions on that. So in BS6 emissions, when we certify our engine or sorry vehicle on lab and on road, it will be giving 2 times of the emissions what we are getting in road. And on road, emissions are measured with the help of portable emissions measurement system. And if we are 2 times of our lab, then we are okay with this real drive emission test. Else, we have to repeat that test again. Now, as we move further ahead in terms of technicality and complexity, so legislative part has also put lot of restrictions, or you can say clauses, like suppose driver or some owners should not cheat the system. So for that there is a clause of on-board diagnosis. Suppose some of your sensors may fail, it should give a alarm to a driver, and after some time it will reduce the power and torque of your system, and the driver has to go to the dealer and rectify that fault and conduct the driving again. Now as we can see, the first stage of emissions comes from the different elements, and the contribution of the vehicle to pollution is very well known to the industry. What are the various parameters, why, how we calculate the final emissions, and the industry recognized the facts and has worked continuously for the improved control of emissions as per auto fuel policy, and proactively developing environment friendly technologies. So now if we see my final emissions which comes out from my vehicle, it's a multiplicative factor of various factors. One is the basic engine fuel consumption. Okay, this is my basic minimum fuel consumption which is required to sustain speed torque point. So that will give some amount of CO2 emissions. After that, the quality of fuel. If my fuel is not a good quality, then my combustion will be proper, and it will significantly increase into CO2 emissions. Next point is that if these 2 points are okay, then next point may be the quality of the traffic management and traffic volume. So if we are driving in a very touch go type conditions, which is, or you can say start stop type conditions, where our vehicle runs at a very low load points, and in these zones we have a higher brake specific fuel consumption because due to the higher frictions. And obviously last not least, but it is the driver behavior. So how you put your foot on accelerator pedal. So all these things combines some points comes in a multiplication factors, some point come in a addition factors, and overall CO2 is generated from a vehicle. Now I take you to the emission regulations journey, what India has done in last, I will say, 28 years. So the first stage of mass emission norms came into force, that was for the petrol vehicle, and it was in 1991, and 1992 it came for the diesel vehicles, but it came only for Delhi. Then after that, from April 1995, it is made mandatory to put a catalytic converter for the new passenger car vehicles in the major four metro cities, that is Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata. And one more parameter which was imposed, that was the use of unleaded petrol, and availability of unleaded petrol was increased to further more cities for the next 3 years. Then by 2000, it was like a nationwide BS1 emission norms, what we can call. And in year 2000, passenger cars and commercial vehicles meet Euro 1 equivalent emission norms, while two-wheeler norms at that point was the one of the most stringent norms in the category. Then Euro 2 equivalent, that is equivalent to Bharat Stage 2 norms, was forced in 2001. Again, that was imposed only in 4 metro cities, because BS1 came first in the 4 metro cities. Then BS2 was I will say implemented all over India in 2010, and 2010 there was a change in emission norms, that was BS3, that was implemented to the 13 metro cities. Instead of 4, now we have crossed to 13 metro cities, and it was moved to all over India by 2017. In 2017, we have availability of BS4 fuel and BS3 emissions all over India, including Northeast. Earlier, that why BS3 we were not able to implement all over India, because fuel quality was not available as per BS4 grade in Northeast countries. Now from 2017 to 31st March 2020, we are in the BS4 regime. And from 1st April 2020, we have adopted the BS6 emissions norm. But now due to current lockdown situation, that date is slightly moved ahead by 1.5 months. And in 2022, we have to meet these BS6 emissions norms with real drive emissions checkpoints. And this is the one part, and one of the major changes which has done in terms of fueling, that has gone from BS2. In BS1 1996, we were using around 10,000 ppm sulfur, that was very hazardous for catalytic converters at all those after treatment parts. Then we realized that then in 2000 it was reduced to 2,500, but still you might have heard that lot of catalytic converters or after treatments were used to get poisoned due to this high sulfur content. Then in 2004, government bring a regulation, we will bring to 500 ppm sulfur, which was okay for the catalytic converters and after treatments for the gasoline purpose. And at that time we were not using any SCR or DPF, so that was okay. Then as we move down the BS6, then fuel was 10 ppm. So that 10 ppm fuel is required to remove the ash content which get deposited due to the sulfur in the SCR emissions. So now, give me a moment. Now this I have shown the emissions overuse. So what are the developments which we have to bring our system from engine or vehicle from BS4 to BS6, because there is a massive drop in emissions. So PM has gone from 0.025 gram per gram per kilometer to 0.005 gram per kilometer, whereas NOx has again 50% reduction. So there are various techniques which we adopted as an industry, like we have reduced the compression pressure, because if we reduce the compression pressure, it reduces the overall combustion temperature. That further reduces the NOx level, because NOx is a function of temperature as well as oxygen. And apart from that, fuel systems, high injection fuel system, and with NTP optimization, that is nozzle tip rotation, with that I will share in the subsequent slides how. Then this is the basic from the fuel point system. Then after that, there are some two major hardwares which leads into the performance as well as emissions. They are EGR cooler and turbocharger. Then once we plug these two hardware, then we do the engine optimization with the help of softwares and with the help of ECU. Then in that we change the required amount of EGR flow rates, then pilot injections, like one pilot injection or two pilot injection depends on our strategy. Then MI, main injection timing section tuning, as well as post injection implementation, because that is required for DPF. So this is, we did the tuning to meet the engine out emissions. After that we put DOC DPF, so our PM margin is in the limit. Then we have to put SCR or LNT. It selection of this hardware depends on the what is the profile of the exhaust temperature which we are able to generate in the system. So if we are able to get the good exhaust temperature, then we prefer the SCR, because SCR conversion efficiency is high with a minimum temperature of 250 degree, and whereas LNT works at a lower temperature of 150, 180 also. Now, this slide speaks about the what is the performance and emissions optimization strategy, because it's a very challenging task which a development engineer has to take. So we divide these activities into with three parts, broad level. Different OEMs have different strategies. So one is this engine hardware selection, what just I talked about, this lower compression ratio, fuel systems like rail injection systems, turbocharger, EGR cooler, the injector profile. This is the benefit which we get due to the change in the adopting the hardware. Now next part is the engine calibration, like multiple injections. I told just pilot injection, main injection, and post injection, coupled with the various other calibration parameters like EGR rates, rail pressures, and this timing sweeps. Then after that, this is my limit which is giving my engine. If you are able to meet my emissions norm with that, it is very well to go. Else I have to further kill the emissions which is coming out from my engine out with the help of additional after treatment systems. And most common of them are diesel oxidation catalyst, diesel particulate filter, and selective catalytic reduction or lean NOx trap. So purpose of the DOC is to reduce the SC and CO emissions. Diesel particulate filter is used to reduce the particulate matter, and SCR is used for the reduction of NOx. Now we will discuss about this turbocharger. Turbocharger is a very important device nowadays, because nowadays we are moving toward downsizing of the engine, and we need the more specific power density from an engine. So 1 liter engine is giving 70 bhp, 80 bhp. So that's the average industry is moving, and some of the OEMs have moved to 100 bhp from the 1 liter engine. So if we have to meet this power requirement, then we need a very good volumetric efficiency. So turbochargers uses the energy which is available in the exhaust gas to provide the power to the compressor, and exhaust gas which contains energy in the form of heat and pressure is routed through the turbine. And the compressor of a turbocharger is just like a diffuser which converts the kinetic energy into a pressure. And generally turbochargers are nowadays an integral part of IC engines to improve the low end torque and to improve the smoke limitations, as well as in order to improve the black smoke. Because if we put a turbocharger, then it increases the boost pressure. Suppose the pressure engine is breathing at a atmospheric pressure which you are currently having at your any place. But when we use the compressor or this turbocharger, it increases the boost pressure and to couple of times, and which allows to increase the engine flow rate. That helps us in reduction in the smoke. And this follows a simple ideal gas equation of PV is equals to MRT. And with the, as we input the turbocharger, then there is a significant increase in the temperature. So in order to bring back the this compressed air to the desired temperature of 40 to 45 degree, we use the intercooler. Otherwise, what will happen? This high temperature air, compressed air, will go into the engine, and due to the lower density, again we will be the facing the concern of the smoke, because now once we condense the compressed air with the help of intercooler, we get the better volumetric efficiency also. So turbochargers generally are of various types. One is free float, in which just only use the exhaust energy and runs the compressor. So this is an old thing which we used in like gensets and couple heavy duty platforms. And suppose if you have a turbocharger which is a free float and you don't need an excess boost, so then you put a one actuator valve which works on a pressure difference. So that is known as a wastegate. So that reduces your the excess air. And now most important, what we are using currently in automotive industry is a variable nozzle turbine. It is having a turbine which is having a blades, and which adjusts the closing and opening of the turbine blades as per the exhaust energy available. And some of the products also come adopt the different strategies like 2-stage or 3-stage turbochargers. So 2-stage turbocharger is nothing, you can say it is similar to a 2 wastegate turbochargers in a single turbochargers with a different compressor size. So first we use a very small compressor that gives us a very high low end torque, because at a very low speed, due to the moment of inertia, we are able to use the less exhaust energy from the system, and that helps us drive the smaller turbocharger at a faster rate. So once you have achieve some speed of around 1500, then you have good amount of exhaust energy into your system. At that time we shift from the low stage turbocharger to high stage turbocharger, and it develops the boost according to that. And these wastegate turbochargers use two types of actuators. One is pneumatic and one is electric. So pneumatic currently we are using mostly in heavy duty, because there we don't have that much dynamic as compared to automotive. And automotive cycle, in order to control the emissions and improve the better response, we have to use the electric actuators. Now the typical turbocharger construction consists of various parts. One is the compressor wheel, which you can see in the lower pic. And this compressor wheel is a very critical part, because once we compress the ambient air to certain level, then there is an increase in the temperature. So this sustainability of the temperature depends on the material size. Now suppose if we are using a very low turbocharger and that is giving us a 300 compressor out temperature, and if we are using aluminum material, so that will not work. Our compressor will melt and blades of the compressor will change its shape due to this temperature deformation. So we have to choose the compressor material according to our requirement also, as well as this compressor and turbines both are mounted on the same shaft coupled with the help of general bearing rotation. So we have to keep a proper oil supply with the proper oil pressure that should go into the general bearings for the lubrications, so that there will not be a wear of the general bearings, and there will not be a oil leakage into the system also, sometimes maybe due to the breakage of the seals. And last part is the turbine assembly. This turbine housing and turbine wheel should also withstand the higher temperature which is coming out from the engine. Now, this is just a typical compressor map which people used to use. So one end is a pressure ratio and x-axis is a volume flow rate. Now, if you see the curve, then there are a couple of margins which I have plot. Like you can see, one is the surge limit, one is altitude margin, and one is choke limit. So I will tell you the significance why we need the surge limit. So when we optimize our compression ratio and with the help of boost demand, then there is a pulsation in the system which sometimes resists, and we are demanding very high boost ratio for a very low volume flow rate. So this type of phenomena we have to avoid, because in this phenomena there is a pulse which sometimes acts high, which sometimes acts low, so that sudden jerk in the system sometimes lead to the failure of the combustion. So as a thumb rule, we used to keep as a 10% of surge limit and 10 to 15% of choke limit at the sea level. So now you see the extreme light, it is a choke limit. So choke limit comes as a, this is, you can see, feel like this is the maximum quantity of air flow for a particular pressure ratio which a compressor can give. After that, it is like just a choking of the, because it's a diffuser only. So it's just like a choking for that compressor, and it will not generate any increase in the airflow, but it will increase its speed, and that is very harmful for the turbine, because turbine and all these things should fail, because as they work on the rotodynamics, so they, from the supplier side, there is some limitations for this compressor and turbine size. This may be the maximum speed by which you can drive your compressor. And top one is the altitude margin. So now we do all these trials on a sea level. Now suppose we did this trial on Chennai, and when we go to a OT, so OT is at an altitude margin where atmospheric pressure will be lesser as compared to sea level. So my compressor has to work more, and if it work more, it is having a tendency to increase the speed of the compressor and turbine wheel. So we have to see this, we have kept a sufficient altitude margin. So first level of trials general people do at the OT level, then we go to Himachal and Shimla. Then after that, once we did this, then we go to the altitude levels of Leh Ladakh, check whether our vehicle is safe in all conditions. Now this is the physics behind this. Now there are a lot of options available for a turbocharger and lot of engines available. So now if we don't meet the proper combination of turbocharger with a proper engine, then it may lead to a non-optimized performance. Like there are various parameters which we have to see, like noise from a compressor. Sometimes it gives the whistle noise, then reliability of a compressor. Suppose if we are operating at a somehow near to the compressor and turbine temperature limits, then pulsation flows, because as our engines are going shorter and shorter due to the air dynamics path, there is always a pulsation inside the system. And once from engineering side we choose these parameters, then I have to give this suggestion to my designers or vehicle team. So vehicle team has to see that whether am I able to package this compressor on my engine, and if I'm able to manage on my engine, then we have to check whether we are able to manage on this packaging on a machine. Then sometimes it is not possible to manage with same structure, then we do the design of some brackets and all this. Sometimes those things increases the mechanical stress on the systems, and over and above, it should not drive the stresses in terms of thermal and mechanical on the engine compartment itself, because there are lot of other you can say sensors and ECU which take inputs from a heat sensor or temperature based sensor. So in those conditions, our overall calibration can go on a toss. So for putting those things, we put some heat seals so that heat will not transfer to other components. So now at the one end, there is a significant huge demand from a engine, and other end there are some limited offerings from a turbocharger. So whatever this is just a huge matrix which I have plotted. So out of these four metrics, somewhere we have to find out a solution which will fit our requirement. Now I will like to take you through the just a working how does this turbocharger VTG works. This I have taken a this movie from a Borg Warner technology system, so you can get a good idea about how this turbocharger works. So from this side, axial path movement is the movement of the air which goes inside the compressor, and the radial path from where the compressed air comes out. And this red zone you are seeing, that is the turbine side. So this red significance that there is a higher temperature at this point. And now you can see the inside geometry of a turbine. You can see there are some blades which we can adjust themselves, and compressor is a free float type, and both are coupled to a same shaft. You can see exhaust energy coming, turbine is utilizing. On the other hand, compressor is utilizing the axial air and moving out the compressed air radial. And in between this is an actuator. You can see the actuator is controlling the pressure if the pressure exceeds. Now next hardware is that exhaust gas recirculation. So I told you earlier, one is turbocharger, and again is the next is exhaust gas recirculation. So the exhaust gas recirculation is an emission control of nitrogen, and whatever is exhaust will into the combustion chamber. It is not involved in the any combustion reaction that takes place in the cylinder due to the lower oxygen content, and the speed of the combustion process overall is thus reduced, and this helps us in reduction in the peak flame temperatures inside the combustion chamber. And the exhaust gas recirculation generally in India we are using, that is of the high pressure EGR system, and that is based on the pressure difference. Higher the pressure difference from exhaust, energy will be this exhaust gas will be moving to the compressor side and into the apart from that, there is one more category which is a low pressure EGR that is used in advanced emission norms, and that I will discussing in future. And one is the hybrid EGR, that is a combination of high pressure system as well as low pressure system, because every system is having some advantage and disadvantage. Then we can do. Now in high pressure system, EGR is routed from the high pressure turbine side to the compressor side with the help of a short path. And in a high pressure system, a pipe leads to the some of the exhaust gas from the exhaust manifold, and we put it into the intake manifold where it is mixed with the fresh air. And this system usually contains at least a single EGR cooler, or in some older versions, it's just a valve, or in some cases, it may be a two EGR coolers, because the purpose of that is to to cool the exhaust gases, and that helps us in increase the overall volumetric efficiency of the mixture once it gets mixed with the mixture. And advantage of this short route system is basically its simplicity and its fast response on the EGR system. And couple of problems it drives, like sometimes there is a crack of the EGR cooler or EGR cooler foulings happens. In those cases, or suppose our exhaust temperatures are very high, turbocharger is able to manage that temperature, but our EGR cooler inside tubes are not able to manage. So if we have a very high thermal stress on those, then there is a chances of punctures. So all those things we have to keep monitor with an eye with the special sensors at the EGR cooler in out, and we have to take care of our development process overall for during the development process, so that there is not a failure mode which can happen in a field. Whereas on the other side, we can see the low pressure EGR system take out EGR from a downstream of the DPF and drive into the upstream just before the compressor. As this overall routing is a big, so it is having a slow response in the system. And this is also having a disadvantage, as a response is, as it's a long path, our response is sluggish sometimes, or it may not respond at the right time when we need the correct signals. And this is also coupled with the EGR cooler. Now in this case, the quantity of the, you can say the rating of the EGR cooler will be the less, because we are taking out the exhaust gas from a lower end. So there will be a lower temperature as compared to the exhaust mode. And once we send it just before the compressor, then there is a chances that compressor temperature may increase, because earlier compressor was in high pressure, it takes the ambient temperature, whereas in this case the temperature will be higher than ambient. So overall compressor out temperature will be on higher side. So those things also we have to keep in mind. And parallelly we also have to keep an eye on the soot deposit on the compressor vanes. If there is a high amount of soot deposits, then the clearance between the two vanes will reduce, and that will reduce the, you say the volume airflow, and further it acts like a further choking. Then one is the hybrid, last is the hybrid system, that is in between of high pressure system and pressure system. So when you need a dynamic cycle, then it should shift to the high pressure EGR system, and where you are using the cruising vehicle on a very steady state condition, you don't need very transient response, there we can on the low pressure EGR path. Then one more technique which we use, this is starting from the engine out, that is the compressor reduction technology, because this helps reduction in the compression ratio, helps us in reduction at the overall flame temperatures, and due to which low ignition delays that can use for the most intense pre-mixed combustion, if we know the different phases of combustion. So this is just, we are increasing the length of pre-mixed combustion, and local air fuel zones are also reduced. So this gives slightly more volume, that you can sell the more clearance volume, so that helps us in reduction of the soot. Then combustion bowl design. Now the combustion bowl shape itself is a very complex, complex. So just for your information, or just regarding, as most of you are not might be aware of various inside chemistry and physics which goes into the combustion behavior. So I have just taken out some major small steps what we can do from a compressor bowl side that helps us in reduction in different emission reduction. So first is most important is the port swell. So now as we are using the high injection rail system, so now our port swell we are trying to reduce as well as we are trying to increase the throat radius so that my fuel which is coming out from the injector should not hit on the lip height. You can see the right hand, because what will happen if the fuel will hit on this lip height directly, then it will divide into the two part, or you can say it will act like an impact. So that will form some very heavy atomization particles, and you can say highly equivalent zone, and it will not take part into a momentum. So my task should be that I should inject my spray to a lower radius of the lip, so that once it will hit that, some majority of portion it will go to the downside toroidal radius, and some part it will go to the lip height and over above the clearance volume or the slender head wall. So this helps on the impact spray momentum as well as vortex formation. This vortex formation helps us in soot as well as NOx reduction. Whereas this lip height is very sensitive to the nozzle tip protrusion and spray momentum. So this also has to be critically checked at the time of the initial level of development, because whatever activity we will do in future, that will be the base on this only. If we missed out something at this level, then we may have to pay a heavy penalty in future for that. And there are various factors which influences the fuel mixing. So just a minute, sorry. Just so one is port swell, one is intake temperature, and one is the boost pressure. These are the various important parameters which take the initial part in the airflow. Like if our port swell are very, I will say we have very high swell ratio, then our volumetric efficiency will be on the lower side, and we will not be able to deliver the correct air fuel ratio which is required for the mixing. Next is intake air temperature. If we have a higher intake air temperature, then our volumetric efficiency will further be lower due to the reduced density. And last is the boost pressure. So if our turbocharger is not capable to deliver the desired boost pressure, then we will not be able to the desired fuel air mixing as well as the what we call the desired air fuel ratio. Then once we fix all this, the desired air fuel ratio from a intake entry point of view, then we have to think from a bowl point of view. Then we have to see the what type of bowl we have choose for our application, because different application use different type of bowls. Then and what is the in bowl swill which causes the momentum of the fuel flow. Then once we fix these two major combination, then we have a hardware leverage, that is the injector and nozzles. So this, with the help of this further, we can help us, this can help us in reduction in the emissions, and we can optimize our combustion with the help of different injector parameters. One is like what type of nozzle we are using, and number of holes, nozzle diameters, nozzle tip protrusions, spray cone angle, then solenoid solenoid injector rate profiles, and number of injections, what is the capable of a injector to do the injections. And so this portion I'm just cutting down because as we are little bit delay, and I have to join some meetings at 3:30, so I'm just cutting out some of the points like port swell which I have. Now I will share you this, what are the points which we have to consider while we work on the injector bowl design. This is very strong. Now just when I told you the this slide. Now we have to put the impingement at the lower lip height so that most of the fuel go into the toroidal radius and it will form a high vortex zone. So that you can see from the left first phase, you can see the vortices. So these vortices should be strong, and higher the vortices, this will leads to a lower soot formation inside the combustion bowl. And you can see the second pic, which is just an 1D, 2D representation of the spray with where it is hitting. And last photos pics you can see it is from a top view. So now when I am having a good amount of swill, I am having a 8 or 6 number of holes, then there's a spray pattern which every hole will make. So now due to the swill, these sprays or plumes, we call as a plumes, it should not interact with each other. There should be sufficient gap between all these plumes. Otherwise, what will happen? These top plumes will interact with each other and form a ridge zone. So you can see from a top point of view, there are various holes which spray and it will move. So they should not be crossing of the plumes. Otherwise, it will overlap and call the very high equivalent zone. And from simulation point of view, when we do all these simulations, we have to keep this in mind where this combustion parameters goes on. So our target is that we can keep the equivalence ratio as low as possible, whereas lower soot temperatures zones. Now this is just an representation of the various spray cone angles and where they can hit. So this is a optimization what we can do from the combustion optimization point of view. Then what I told, that high pressure common rail injection system. So this is a very common system nowadays, and all OEMs, especially even nowadays in agriculture also, people are migrated from the mechanical fuel pumps to the common rail system. And last area is that friction reduction. So there are various areas which cause friction reduction for the BSFC, because there is a one set of customers, they are very focused on the fuel economy point of view, and whatever you can do from a calibration point of view, hardware point of view, you will get some limited success. But there are various avenues, or there are various areas in your base engine itself where you can work out and try to reduce the engine friction reduction. That is crank train, ball train, piston ring tensions, and lower friction oils. Each and everything is having some advantage as well as some disadvantage, but that we have to balance during the course of development and do the risk mitigation activities what we can afford. And there are various areas by which we can improve the air qualities, like some level we can do from the engine and vehicle technology. Then after that it comes from a fuel infrastructure. Then there are various social impacts and driver educations, like how to drive in a particular driving behavior. Then road infrastructures and different modes of transportations and fuel infrastructure. I mean to that there are various type of fuels like alternative fuels which generates less emissions, or maybe E100 or B100. So this is just in short what I have described regarding my timing, what I'm having. So, and I apologize everyone as due to the delay in the startup. So if you have questions, then I can take all your questions for next 15 minutes.
Yeah, everyone, if you have any questions, please post in the chat. So Anshul can answer your question.
Yeah, there is a question.
There is a question, Anshul.
There is a question from Vivek Patnaik. How do you regulate the soot entering the turbocharger?
How?
How do you regulate the soot entering the turbocharger?
See, we cannot neglect the soot entering into the turbocharger. So I think you are asking about the low pressure EGR system from that point of view. So what happens when we use the low pressure EGR systems, we are using the exhaust gas after DPF. So once we get the DPF, the soot content is very minimal. And once it get passed through this EGR cooler, it further get condensed and it passes through the compressor itself. So but as it is having some tendency to stick, it will form in some minute level. So for that minute level, we have a guidelines. It should not stick more than 10 micron on a, you can say, compressor valve. Whereas in high pressure EGR system, we give the EGR circuit after compressor so that we don't have the challenge on the soot particle deposit on the compressor. I hope this is clear to you.
Any other questions, students? Please post here. So there is a question in the chat.
Go ahead, Grish.
Yeah, BS6 is decreasing the power and torque of the vehicle, which is a disadvantage. So how do the automobile companies counter that problem?
No, BS6 is not decreasing the power and torque of a engine. This is false, because if we use the same hardware, so definitely because we have increased the EGR, but with the help of hardwares like what I told, is turbocharger and EGR coolers. And in BS6, we have used a bigger EGR cooler, so that will further increase our volumetric efficiency by reducing the exhaust temperature. And it will reduce your power and torque only in one condition, that is, suppose you have SCR or DPF and you have some malfunction. In that case only, as a indicator, or you can say inducement level warning to a driver that there is something malfunctioning happening in your system and your vehicle is not giving the desired emissions. So that in that case only is a limb hop mode, which is we have to give, and that is driven by the legislative. So no one can do that. But from an normal operating point of view, there is no drop in power and torque.
Yes, sir, there is another question. Is catalytic converter is in use now?
Yes, catalytic converter is used in gasoline and as well as the CNG fuel based vehicles, because if we see, the catalytic converter is a three-way converter. It helps us in reduction in CO, SC and NOx. So it do the oxidation of CO and SC, whereas reduce the reduction of the NOx with the help of different combination of precious materials like platinum, palladium, rhodium. Platinum, palladium is used for oxidation, whereas platinum or palladium with a combination of rhodium is used for the reduction of the NOx. Whereas if we see the if we see the diesel vehicles, there we don't use three-way catalytic converter. There we use the diesel oxidation catalyst only, that helps us in oxidation of CO and SC. The reason behind that, because the conversion efficiency of three-way catalytic converter is only good when you are running your vehicle in a stoichiometric ratio zone only, that is 14 near to 14.7. But in diesel engine, anyways, we are using higher than our stoichiometric ratio. So if we put even three-way catalytic converter, it is having a very poor efficiency and it won't work. So for treating NOx and all that, we are using SCR systems and other systems.
Fuel injection technique is widely used at present for ensuring efficient combustion.
Yes. See, fuel injection is a basic parameter or basic injection system which we have used from 80s, 18th century, because earlier there were mechanical pumps which gives us lower injection pressures and response were not high. Now, as due to the with the help of various electronic systems, we have migrated from mechanical systems to the common rail systems. Now, common rail systems has also evolved in lot of generations. Like first generation, there was a injection pressure 1200 bar system. Then they moved to 1600 bar system, then to 2000 bar, and then 2400 bar system. So, and this is one, as well as parallelly lot of development has happened on the injector front also, because fuel system comprise of this common rail system as well as injector also. Suppose if we have a good fuel system but injectors are not supporting, then the optimization of technology use will not happen. Then now at the one end we are doing the improvement in the injection system. Second and most end, we have to see from the what is the challenge which this system bring. As these systems, as we are using higher injection pressure, so this has increased in the cost of the system, because system to withstand so much extensive pressure, as well as if we inject with such a high pressure, then there is a chances of fuel impingement on the walls of the combustion bowl. So that can lead to increase in emission. So for that, you have to further retune your combustion bowl also. I hope I've satisfied your query.
Is emissions is more while using continuous various transmission.
Can you please elaborate, Girish, little bit? What does it mean?
Yeah. Srihari Verma, please elaborate your question. Is a question like, is emissions is more while using continuous various transmission? Yeah, Ajit, you can talk. Yeah.
Anshul, he's asking about continuously variable transmission. What will happen to the
yes,
emissions?
Yes. So see, when we do the emission cycle, then there are particular gear combinations which we have to drive. So there is a one important parameters. Either it will not affect your emissions, but it will more affect your performance. Because if you do the same test in the two different gears, then you have a different set points, and due to which you have a different EGR flows. Maybe in one case you may have slightly less exhaust energy, and one case you may have slight higher exhaust energy. So that increase your EGR. So in that case, there is a possibility you feel lag in the performance, but in general, we have to couple this transmission as well as this engine as a whole integrated body when we go for the certification. And this is more important in wheelers.
Are there any more questions, students?
Any more questions, students?
Yeah, sir, we are reducing the intake temperature of air and low compression ratio. This leads to less power output. Justify.
Please repeat your question.
We are reducing the intake temperature of air and low compression ratio. This leads to less power output.
See, this decrease in air will not reduce our torque. Increase in air will reduce our torque, and you can say power. The reason is that air density. Because in a system, when we do the optimization, we define a optimized air fuel ratio for a particular fuel quantity. So there are some sensors like HFM sensors which continuously monitors what is the quantity of air which is coming into the system. Now, for this high temperature, I give some range that my air fuel ratio should be in that range. So in order to meet the air fuel ratio in that range, my injection system will reduce my fueling quantity. So by that way, there is a reduction in the power with the increase with the increase in intake air, not decrease in intake air. And your next point is that regarding the compressor. So this lower compression. So lower compression is not reducing your power. It is reducing your emissions by by decreasing your peak flame combustion temperature, because NOx formation is a function of the availability of oxygen as well as uh, availability of high temperature as per Geldovis equation. If we get these two conditions, then only NOx formation will happen. And we are doing it but because we are increasing the ignition delay period, and that is more intensifying the premixed combustion zone as per combustion theory.
There is another question. Do you see India completely moving on from present vehicles to electric vehicles in near future?
Yes, there is a lot of work going in automotive as well as heavy duty everywhere. But if we see that there are a lot of various factors which has to do these things. One of couple of parameters is that availability of the range. Like suppose maximum we have 200, 300 kilometers. So for city purpose, these will be okay. Second point is that the fast charging station infrastructure. So the government is working on that, and government is having a clear policy or vision for the automotive electric mission that they call as for 2025, and government is moving fast on that path, but still a lot of work has to be done in order to make it as a reality, because in India we are making lot of electricity generation from the steel thermal. So while there is a couple of work which industry like doing the analysis for well to wheel analysis, like suppose you have dig out fuel from the well, it has gone to the refinery, then it has gone to the petrol, and it has gone to your vehicle. So that is one efficiency. Now when you go to the electric vehicles, your vehicle has gone, you are digging the coal, then going to thermal plant, from thermal power plant it has gone to transmission zones, and from there has come vehicle. So we have to find out the which is the better efficient system, and there are a lot of work going in that field. But still it will take minimum 10 to 15 years approx as per Europe consideration, which I have read a lot of articles about Europe. So, and in Europe majority of generation they are doing from the petrol. So still India has to travel a long way.
One more question is, Anshul.
Yeah.
One more question is, why are we using supercharger instead of turbocharger?
Supercharger and
Turbocharger. I mean, why aren't we
difference
using?
between
Why aren't we using supercharger instead of turbocharger?
Ajit, in practical we are using supercharger very less, at least in India I have not seen any, because in supercharger we are using the energy from our current source, like from ultimately it will increase your fuel specific consumption, and India is a more over fuel economy driven market. So here we are just trying to get what is the energy which is going to waste anyways in exhaust. So we are trapping that energy and generating the power, or you can say using that energy to develop the boost.
Vivek, you understand the answer? One last question, guys. Anshul, due to BS6
Yeah.
engine, the piston heads have been damaged. So, are there any remedies for developing that?
Due to BS6 piston,
BS6 engine, the piston heads are being damaged. How do you know, Mr. Nagasai? BS6 piston heads are being damaged, it seems. Are there any remedies for this developing?
Ajit, there are various reasons for this piston seizures, or I can call, because this happens generally not in BS6, even in I have seen in BS4 and BS3 development phase also, because when as we are using different injection parameters and this, so sometimes if as in the initial development or initial hardware selection, sometimes there is a dribbling of the fuel, or sometimes fuel due to the improper bowl design, fuel get stuck into that bowl toroidal zone. So it is having a more quantity of fuel which we don't see physically. So what happens, there is a sudden explosion of the fuel, high quantity fuel, and there was a thermal stress and very high temperature on the piston crown, and due to which it melts. And in BS6, it is during development, it has become prone more because as we are using DPFO, so that is having a post injection also. So during post injection, if you are using higher injection rates and all this, so the possibility is that it will stuck on your this piston crown or this piston bowl shape.
Yeah.
And drop by drop it accumulates, and over a run, maybe 5-10 minutes or sometimes 30 minutes, you get some seizure on.
Yes. Okay, guys. That's it with the questions. Okay.
Yeah, Anshul sir, thank you very much. It is a wonderful session. On behalf of Gayatri management, students, staff, faculty, everyone, we are very much thankful to you for sparing your valuable time. I know that most of the professionals are working from home, though in the lockdown situation, and tremendously in the work pressure. Taking time out of your work pressure and giving a talk to the students, it's a wonderful act from your side, sir. Thank you very much. As Ajit is the person behind this talk, I request Ajit to give the closing remarks. Ajit, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Once again, I want to thank you, Mr. Anshul Agarwal, for spending his time and delivering a beautiful lecture on engine emissions and performance parameters, which I think most of you have gained knowledge, and most of you have gone through these subjects in present second years and third year. So I think this will be an additional knowledge to you, and to give you a much more insight of things where you can learn more. So once again, I would like to thank you, Anshul, on behalf of GVP College of Engineering.
Thank you, boys and girls. Thank you, Ajit. Thank you, Girish.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Everyone stay safe, stay positive, stay productive. Have a nice evening ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anshul.
Thank you, sir. Ajit, I would like to say thank you for this present session, and I got the opportunity to interact with you all students. So it was a fruitful lesson or teaching from my side, and I hope it was helpful in terms of understanding for the students, and it is a pleasure for me.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, it is very much useful, and student will develop on this. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir. I'm ending the session.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye, everyone.